Broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning and welcome to our webinar on Latinos Give on Giving Tuesday, an introduction and quick summary of how to make the most of HIPGive and run a crowdfunding campaign within the remit of Giving Tuesday 2017. We have a lot of people signed up for the call today, so we're just going to take another minute or two and let more people join on before we start. Right, let's get going. It's great of you to join us today for our webinar about Latinos Give. My name is Anita Gallagher and I lead the training and outreach program at HIPGive. We're a crowdfunding platform serving Latino serving organizations in the US and Latin America. And today we're talking about Latinos Give, which is our initiative to promote giving, especially through online giving and crowdfunding campaigns and for Latino serving organizations within the remit of Giving Tuesday movement. Now, many of you have probably heard of Giving Tuesday. It's growing and growing, not only in the US and Latin America, but throughout the world. But just in case you haven't, let me tell you that Giving Tuesday is a global day of giving fueled by the collaboration of social media fueled by the power of social media and collaboration. It was founded in the US about 6 years ago, and it follows after Thanksgiving. We have Black Friday, Cyber Monday, and then Giving Tuesday. So it's really the kickoff of the charitable season. In Latin America, it's growing as Un Día para Dar. And it really is growing throughout the world. Here we have a map of all of the different countries where there are official Giving Tuesday movements. And we know, in fact, that in up to 100 different countries, there's going to be activities this year on Giving Tuesday, which is Tuesday, November 28th. So it's a fast growing movement. More and more people are talking about it every year. It's not just something now that takes part in the US and Canada, but it's really becoming known throughout the world. But one of the wonderful things about Giving Tuesday is that it's a very free, creative, and innovative movement. There's a lot of space for everyone to promote giving, to promote generosity, to encourage people to support the causes they care about in their own particular way. And we see that innovation and creativity in the way that the movements are expressed on an international level and at state level and a community level. There's so many different ways to get involved and come on board with Giving Tuesday. And as nonprofits, of course, it's a great way for us to spread that message of the importance of giving back and give them a concrete opportunity to support the causes and the projects that we're working on as nonprofit organizations. And within Hispanics in Philanthropy, and specifically our crowdfunding platform, HIPGive, we have promoted over the last couple of years an initiative called Latinos Give on Giving Tuesday. We want to send out the message that there are so many worthy Latino serving nonprofit organizations and projects working throughout the US and of course all the way throughout America, Latin America as well, and that these projects and organizations deserve investment. They deserve the resources that they need to keep on carrying the great work that you're doing. And we want to also let it be known that Latinos as a community, we're a giving people. We like to give back. We give back to the causes that matter to us as well. So that's a little bit about the genesis of why it's called Latinos Give on Giving Tuesday. And today in this brief session, I want to run through with you some of the basic points on how to make the most of Latinos Give on Giving Tuesday for your organization to raise funds at the end of this year. So we'll start off with a little explanation of why it's a good idea to take part, how you can take part, and then a little bit about where and when to organize your campaigns. We know that time is not on our side. We're just about 3 weeks out from Giving Tuesday 2017, but there is still time to get your campaign up and running and make the most of it. So why is it a good idea to take part in Latinos Give and to take part in Giving Tuesday activities in general? As I said, Giving Tuesday is growing. It really is becoming more and more recognized, but there's been really interesting data that has been analyzed and circulated. This is just one aspect of that data, but it comes from Classy, and they published a report a couple of weeks ago saying that Giving Tuesday is an absolute bonanza for new prospects. It brings in twice as many new donors as December 31st, 3 times more than a typical day during disaster relief, and over 13 times more than a typical day. So if you're interested not only in fundraising at this end of year, but you're interested in attracting new donors to your cause, then Giving Tuesday is one of your best secret weapons, shall we say, because Giving Tuesday is really accessible. It's easy to send out the message that we have a day in the year for St. Valentine's, we have a day to celebrate mothers and fathers. Why not just celebrate one day your ability to give to others? So it's not a big ask. It's a very low bar, saying people, just this one day, give something to a cause that you care about, and you can choose how much to give and where you give it and how you give it. And that what makes it so strong and encouraging new people who might not have given a charitable donation or might be thinking about giving to new organizations or in new ways. It's really easy to bring them on board on Giving Tuesday. And it's got that very positive atmosphere of celebrating our capacity to give. We're not giving out of guilt. We're not giving out of obligation. We're giving because we want to give. And that is really powerful if we can latch on to that sentiment in our own campaigns. Another reason why it's beneficial to take part in Latinos Giving Tuesday is because it really works. We've proven that. We've been running this campaign now for a couple of years, each November. And on Giving Tuesday last year, on HIPGive alone, we had 120 different projects. And those projects, thanks to each of their really committed communications campaigns, they had more than 1,251 donations. And those donations totaled more than $250,000 on one single day. So you can see the power of Giving Tuesday and the power of coming together to crowdfund on that day. Now, that total of $250,000 includes matching funds that we had last year. And this year, because Giving Tuesday is becoming so much more established, not only in the US, but throughout Latin America, we don't have specific matching funds available for all the projects that will be participating on HIPGive on Giving Tuesday this year. But I do want to point out, just in case it's relevant for you, that we do have a special campaign called Go Mujeres. And specifically, we'll be running Go Mujeres for Central America, but we still have opportunities as well for organizations in Mexico. So if you work or you know of an organization that works with women and girls in Mexico, then please do spread the word that we have $5,500 available in matching funds for November 28th for the projects that are running on the platform on that day that meet those criteria. That means that those organizations, if they receive a donation, that donation could be duplicated. It could be doubled. So there's more money for the projects that are helping women and girls in Mexico. Please do spread the word if that's relevant to you or you know someone who's working with those organizations or groups. So now that you know a little bit about why it's a good idea to take part in Latinos Give and Giving Tuesday, I want to turn to how to take part. In the time that is available to us, how can you make the most of your campaign? If you've already run a crowdfunding campaign on HIPGive or another platform before, you may be familiar with these steps. But I know that there's a lot of people who are coming to us for the first time on this session. So it's important to take the time to go through each of the steps. The first step is to create your project on HIPGive. I'll explain a little bit more in the coming slides, but it's a simple process, filling in the form, putting up your content so that your project is published and people are able to give online with their credit card. Once your project is published, then you should coordinate a communications campaign with specially branded content. By that I mean link your campaign, use the logos and the Giving Tuesday hearts and the HIPGive or the Latinos Give signage so that people see that this is part of a wider movement. And then the third step, which actually surprisingly many organizations don't get to in their campaigns, is to recruit ambassadors and peer fundraisers to take your message beyond your own audience. So many organizations that do crowdfunding campaigns, and when they evaluate the results, they say, yeah, we're really happy with the amount we raised, but we noticed that we know most of the donors that contributed to our campaign. And what we had really hoped to do was attract new donors. And as we've mentioned, Giving Tuesday is a great opportunity to attract new donors. But if you want to go beyond your current audience, you're going to have to find ways of reaching into new social groups, new audiences, and you can do that using ambassadors or peer fundraisers. So just going through each of those steps, if you haven't used HIPGive before, here is what the Create a Project main screen looks like. You go to the top menu, you choose the red button that says Create, and there's a form that you can just fill in box by box to complete the content for your project online. Obviously starting with a title, then a slogan, you choose your language. You can add photographs, video, and of course the text that explains what you're going to do. It's a pretty simple form. If you don't have all the materials to hand, don't worry, you can fill in as much as you can, and then it will save the changes for you, and you can go back with your login to your control panel and edit that project at any time before you're ready to send it to us. If you're new to HIPGive and you're wondering how it works, or if you're wondering indeed if there's been any changes over the past year, then let me tell you that we are a platform where you keep what you raise. So you don't have to reach your goal in order for us to liberate the fundings for you. If you set a goal of $5,000 and you only raise $2,000, don't worry, you will receive those $2,000, and you keep what you raise. It's a secure platform. We work with the provider WePay, and they do all the digital encryptation so that all the transactions on the site are secure and to the highest standards required in the US. It's a bilingual site. It's a transnational site. We encourage organizations to use the site to reach out to donors in different countries in different parts of the world, but especially to the diaspora communities, and working with communities of Latinos, supporting different community projects, maybe where they come from or where they live now. You're under no obligation to present your project in both languages, but we do recommend it because it's a great way of making sure that as many people as possible can see the great work that you're doing. In terms of administration and commission fees, we are a low-cost platform in the sense that the commission that we ask the users to pay is only 2.9%, and 30 cents per transaction. That is actually exactly the cost that we pay for the provider of the secure online transactions, which is WePay. So HIPGive itself is not asking for any administration fee from the organizations to be able to use the platform. What we do instead is that we do invite donors to Tip Hip. It's actually called that, the Tip Hip program. So as if you'll see, if you ever make a donation on HIPGive, once you decide which amount to contribute to your chosen project, you'll also have an invitation on screen to leave a tip to enable us at HIPGive to keep on providing the services that we do and maintain the platform. This is a voluntary tip. And the donors are under no obligation to say yes and to fill in an amount, but they can decide if they want to tip at 15%, 10%, or they can actually just write in the dollar amount that they want to leave, or they can mark that box in zero. It's up to them. But as you can imagine, as a nonprofit organization ourselves, those additional donations are really helpful to keep the platform going and to make sure that you as an organization are only paying the commission of 2.9%, which, as I said, is significantly lower than many other crowdfunding platforms. Another of the benefits of HIPGive is that we are able to download from your control panel a list of the donors and their email addresses, which means that you're in direct contact with the donors that make contributions to your campaign. You can do this at any point in the campaign. You don't have to wait until the end. So many organizations use it to send real-time thank you messages to their donors. You can do that through the platform or through the email, and you have those emails after your campaign finishes to integrate those new donors into your donor cultivation system. And finally, we do have a learning center as part of the website. If you go to the Learn menu, you'll find out there's lots of useful articles and FAQs about how HIPGive works. So if you have any questions or just want a little bit more information about how to go about your campaign, what the best practices are, please do visit the Learning Center through the Learn menu at the top of the website. Moving on a little bit to thinking about the communications campaign, which is the next step after you have published your project on HIPGive. The important thing about a communications campaign for HIPGive is that it should be multimedia and it ideally should be branded. So here's just a quick example of an organization from Guatemala that ran a campaign last year on Guatemala Gives on Giving Tuesday. You can see that they made a video and they published this video as part of their project and their project page on HIPGive, but they also circulated it and used it in other social media. And they did a really good campaign, a fun campaign, to raise money for catheters to help children who are undergoing medical treatment. And you see at the left-hand side that they sent out a save the date, which is a really good idea to get Giving Tuesday top of mind and let your potential donors know that you will be doing a campaign on Giving Tuesday and that they can keep that in mind, because as Giving Tuesday gets more and more widely known, then people begin thinking ahead of time who they're going to give to each year. So it's important that you're top of mind of the people that are in your potential group of donors. And then throughout the weeks and leading up to Giving Tuesday, it's a great idea to have that presence and have a branded campaign so that people begin to build up awareness of what you're going to be doing and how you're going to be using the funds that you raise. So this is a great example of give a catheter and take away the pain for the children who are undergoing treatment with IUV. And you can say that they integrated the heart. In this case, it was the heart of Un Día para Dar and the logo of HIPGive. So again, we will be making the logos of Latinos Give available. Giving Tuesday itself is almost an open source movement. You can download logos from the main website and Giving Tuesday as well and integrate those into your communication materials. What you really want to show is that you're part of this wider movement. And that not only generates more interest and enthusiasm for your project, it also generates a sense of trust, which is really important to motivating people to give to your cause. And we mentioned as well that the third step, and one of the very important steps to running a successful communications and crowdfunding campaign, is to make the most of ambassadors. Now, if you're lucky enough, you might have a celebrity that you can call up, or even a local celebrity or a thought influencer, and have them tweet, post, make a video, share something about their support of your project in Giving Tuesday. Here's an example of Enrique Iglesias, who a couple of years ago was promoting Giving Tuesday on his Twitter feed. But if you don't have access to celebrities, don't worry. You can recruit the ambassadors and the people around you, the people who know most about your project and your cause, who trust you most, who are the most motivated to share. So look at the resources of who you have, who you could recruit to be an ambassador for your project, and invite them to come on board. And it's often very useful to even encourage them to say that I know that normally we ask you to give money, but as well, or in addition to giving money this year, your support could be more valuable by sharing the message for us and attracting new people to give to our cause. So one way you can do this is with the perennial unselfie. We know that selfies are photographs where we pose and take photos of ourselves for social media, but an unselfie is when we put the cause first. So we see in this example how this lady has a piece of paper and she's committing what she's going to give this Giving Tuesday. And imagine if she shared that picture with a short message encouraging her friends and family to also give to that cause. And she shared the link and told them, click here, you too can give this Giving Tuesday. And when messages are shared like that between people that have bonds of friendship, even professional companions, people receive that message in a different way than whenever an organization sends out a mass communication. When somebody that we know and trust asks us to give, we trust that message more and we're much more likely to follow through and give to that project or organization. So really do think about how you can integrate people that know and love your cause and ask them to give on your behalf and share the message. Another way that you can do that is by really cultivating a relationship with the people who's already given to your campaign. So if you go to the example at the bottom of the screen, and this is from an organization called Contextos in El Salvador. They've been running Giving Tuesday campaigns for a number of years, and Latinos Give. And they're great at updating their donors on how the campaign's going. You see on the left-hand side, they say $807 raised, 4,193 to go. And they're saying thank you and publishing the names of the people who've already contributed to the campaign. I know that they also send out personal messages to those people thanking them. And what if you were to tag on, after you've already thanked someone who's contributed to your campaign, a simple request saying, now that you've contributed, you can help us get more people and help us reach the goal more quickly by sharing this message. And you give them a little message to copy and paste with the link straight to your campaign page. And that way, again, you're reaching out people who you know are committed and like your project, asking them to reach into their own social groups to spread the message even further. So it's a great idea to make the most of ambassadors and have more people talking about your project and your campaign in Latinos Give. Now, one of the questions that I get very frequently is, how do I go about my campaign? Does it have to be all digital? So this is really the question of where to carry out your campaign. We know that Giving Tuesday is a movement that's grown in the digital era and is based firmly on the hashtag Giving Tuesday and on the growth of social media and sharing on social media. And of course, HIPGive itself is a crowdfunding platform with online communication. So you really should prioritize those digital communications, sending out emails, using social media, and also the messaging apps. We've seen lots of campaigns being boosted using WhatsApp and Facebook Messenger and using the digital platforms that allow that personal interaction. So do prioritize that as your main focus of your communications campaign. But don't be afraid to also complement those digital activities with real life activities and media coverage. There's so many more ways to get involved in Giving Tuesday as well as online campaigns. And if you can mix and match and support your online campaign with a real life activity, it could be a launch party, it could be a giving party, it could be volunteer activities where you're having volunteers involved in the same project that you're also raising funds for. And those give you ways to not only invite more people to come along, but also to spread the word with the media and give them a real something to hook onto in their stories in the press. So do think about the best way to combine those activities. And as well, especially if you're working in Latin America or you're working in communities where not everybody has access to a credit card, then having a real life activity, a real life event is a really good way of boosting your donations, maybe in kind or maybe also in cash. Now, if someone does want to contribute to your campaign and they don't have a credit card, then one of the ways that is a very practical way of getting around that is receiving the money, but having somebody with a credit card make the donation to your online campaign. And what they can do in HIPGive is write a note linked to that donation saying this is made by such and such a person, so that the donation is linked and recognized as being from the original person who made the cash donation. So that's a little tip about where. And this is an example that just shows of how really to mix and match those activities. This is an example from Futuro Vivo, an organization in Guatemala, and they show us that they mixed up. On the right-hand side, you can see some of the digital activities. They made a video, they published content on social media, they sent emails to collaborators and friends of the project, and they did a bombardeo. They bombarded their audience with Facebook, WhatsApp, and emails in the week leading up to Giving Tuesday last year. But you'll see on the left-hand side that they also carried out some presential or real-life activities, as it were. They met with different people and had a presentation to show what their project was about. And they had meetings, both group and person-to-person meetings, with potential donors to solicit their support for the Giving Day and to get a commitment beforehand. And then that meant just in the days leading up to Giving Tuesday, they were just able to get in touch with those people that they'd already met with and reaffirm that commitment. And that was one of the keys to their success, was realizing that not all donations are going to be spontaneous, but that you need to give time to people to get used to the idea. And certainly when you meet with people in person, it's much easier to promote that trust and positive enthusiasm for the project than it is often to do just on digital means alone. And now moving on to the last step. Again, one of the questions is, well, when do I need to get all this started? Because time is running out. We're only a couple of weeks out from Giving Tuesday 2017. Do I have time to do everything that I need to do? And the answer is, of course, yes. Time is tight, but if you get moving, you can still carry out a wonderful campaign. And of course, one of the advantages of crowdfunding is that you don't need to have all your materials prepared a long time in advance. It's best to work with a work plan and be very clear about what needs to be done during the work period, but you don't need a really long lead up time in preparation. So ideally, we've set out here a couple of key dates of how you could organize your campaign from now until the beginning of next year. You should obviously try and put together and publish your project as soon as possible. And that would mean that next week, which is the 13th to the 17th of November, your project is online and you're able to send out a save the date email to all your contacts so that you have that top of mind recognition that your organization will be participating in Giving Tuesday. And people can make a mental note that you're available for donations on that day. Then the week after, the week of the 20th to the 24th of November, that's when you really want to go full speed on your main communications campaign, sending out those emails, talking to people on messaging, on Facebook, and making those calls. If you want, that's a great time as well to have your launch event, to launch your campaign. Just get a couple of people together and make a bit of buzz about what you're going to be doing. And of course, everything is building up towards Tuesday, November 28th, which is Giving Tuesday itself. And on that day and the day before, you want to make sure that everyone is talking about your project on Giving Tuesday. And importantly, you need to get that call to action out. It's not just good enough that everybody's talking about your project, but you want to be driving the traffic towards your campaign page on HIPGive with a very clear call to action that every donation helps. And make sure you include that link to get them there. If it's people that haven't contributed to crowdfunding campaigns before, you might want to include in your messaging as well that it's really easy. And you can give them the confidence that just in a couple of minutes with a couple of steps, they will be able to make a donation online and that the funds will get to you and be used for the benefit of your project. A little reminder there as well that sometimes we think that Facebook is our best weapon and we publish and publish and publish on Facebook. But remember that Facebook is not a one-way tool. The same for Facebook and other social media. What we want to do on social media, especially on the day itself, is get into conversations with people and build that sense of community around Giving Tuesday. So publish by all means, but also interact with people with the likes, with the comments, with the shares. Ask them what they like about your project. And get that call to action into as many conversations as possible. And then finally, moving into December and January, that's when you'll be closing out your campaign. The actual end date for your campaign depends entirely up to you. Some organizations decide that they want to finish up their campaign in the first or second week of December because they have other priorities moving towards Christmas and the end of the year. Although other organizations recognize that December is still a key time for fundraising. And so they keep their projects open all the way through into January, which will work as long as you are able to put in the time to keep promoting your project and make sure that people are aware that they can still give throughout December in order to reach the goal. And then once your project does come to an end, then of course it's time to thank all your donors. Hopefully you'll have been doing that throughout the campaign, but you will have access to their emails as well to send out an official campaign thank you. You can evaluate your performance and work out what went well, what way you could improve in the future. And of course, you need to close out the campaign in administrative terms, and that means sending us the documents that verify your nonprofit status so that we can complete the transaction and send those funds to you. If you work in the US with a US postal address, we'll send the funds by check. If you're in Latin America, we'll send them through an international bank transfer. And the documents that you will need to send us before we're able to do that are your list of board members, your annual budget for the year in question, the financial statements for the previous year, and you will already have sent us your acta constitutiva, your act of incorporation, or if you work in the States, your 501c3 authorization letter. In fact, that authorization letter or your acta constitutiva is what you'll have attached to your project in the very first step of creating your project before you publish it. And the other documents, you'll get a reminder on your control panel and you'll be able to attach them to your organization profile on HIPGive so that they stay with your project online as part of your profile on the platform. That process of making the payments and going through one by one all of the projects and checking their documentation can sometimes be a little laborious. So do try, please, to get your documents in as soon as possible once you see that reminder on your control panel. And if your documents are complete, and we'll be having cutoff dates throughout December and January to pay the projects, and the payments could take between 2 and 4 weeks at this busy time of year. So we just ask you to bear that in mind and do try and get your documents in as soon as possible so that there's no obstacles in that process. So that's the run through of how to make the most of HIPGive for your Latinos Give and Giving Tuesday campaign. Please do remember, Latinos Give is a really great opportunity to get your project out there, to make it more visible. Hispanics in Philanthropy will be promoting the Latinos Give initiative to as many of our friends, colleagues, allies within the philanthropic sector. And we know that it receives a large amount of promotion through all of our different allies as well. But that doesn't mean that funds and donations will magically appear in your project. It's up to you to promote your project as widely as possible. It's up to you to craft that message that you think will be most attractive to potential donors in Giving Tuesday this year. So the microphone is yours, the opportunity is yours. It's up to you to make the most of it. If you have any questions, you'll probably know that there's a Giving Tuesday website, givingtuesday.org. That's the main US website, and in fact, it serves the global community as well. But Giving Tuesday is growing, so if you are working in a particular organization in Latin America, you can also check out the different national websites in Argentina, Mexico, Panama, Puerto Rico, República Dominicana, and Venezuela are just some of the countries, and I know that Chile and Uruguay are also very active in promoting Giving Tuesday. And if you have a specific question about how to use HIPGive, then don't forget about the Learning Center. Going in through the Learn option in the main menu. You can check out our FAQs there for very basic or technical information, and you can read some of the articles about how to integrate some of the best practice into your crowdfunding campaign. And if you still have a question, then we'd be really happy to help you out. Here's our team. We have David, he's the director of HIPGive. He works out of the office in Mexico City. I'm Anita, I lead training. And my colleague Andrea works from the office in Oakland, California. She's our manager, and she deals with all of the different administrative and technological aspects of the platform as well. So you have our emails on the screen. Do feel free to get in touch with us with any question or query. We really love to see campaigns flourish in Latinos Give and Giving Tuesday. So we'll be there to help you as much as we can and make your campaign a success. So I don't know if there's been any questions. Let me open up the question panel. If there's something that you'd like to know, something that I didn't cover, or something you'd like a little bit of clarification on, please do go ahead and use the questions part of the control panel. There's so many of us that I think it would be difficult to open microphones, but I can definitely answer one by one your questions. So Rebecca has asked if I could repeat what HIP is for again. So as I said, HIP is a means by which donors can voluntarily contribute to the ongoing operations of the HIPGive platform. As a nonprofit organization ourselves, we have tried as hard as we can to subsidize our operations so that we don't have to pass on the administrative costs of the platform to the organizations that use it to crowdfund. So we're able to keep that commission fee down to only 2.9% and not ask for anything extra. By using our own sources of income and support, but also asking donors to contribute voluntarily through their tip to HIPGive. And the way that they do that is after they have filled in their donation amount for their chosen project, then there is another part of the screen that says, would they like to contribute voluntarily to Tip HIP? And they can choose the amount that they want to tip, or they can decide not to. That's up to them. And then that will be processed along with their donation. I hope I've answered your question, Rebecca. If you have any more queries, don't hesitate to let me know. I have a question from Lisette. She says, what type of art projects do best? Now that is an interesting question. There's no one type of project that does better than others, although I do know that it's tempting to think that certain types of beneficiaries or projects are more attractive to donors. You know, we always say things like, well, it's easier to raise funds for projects that help young children or education, etc. I do think that it's important that you bear in mind who your target audience is. Who are you able to communicate with? Who will you be sending those emails to or talking to in social media? And what are the issues that concern them most? So the best projects are the ones that really know the target audience and respond to their needs and interests and desires. So if you're running an art project, then think about how does that contribute to what donors want to see changing in their communities. So really step into the donor's shoes and see the project from their perspective is one of the best strategies. And then also build it into the bigger picture of what people are worried about in society today and how our project contributes to that. And then, of course, the third strategy is always be very clear about what positive impact you will create in your community or with the people that you're working with. so many times we are so used to talking about our project that we forget to spell out clearly the positive impact that it creates. So my recommendation is always, before you even try to type the description of your project, try and talk about your project out loud. Imagine that you're talking to your cousin or your aunt or somebody that you went to high school with, and try and explain the project in very simple terms to that person, being clear about why it's important, what you're going to do, and how even a donation of $10 or $20 can make a difference to that project. And if you're able to explain the project in that very simple way and make it exciting and impactful, well, then that's the best way to explain your project. I have a question from Elena. She says, about 40% of our nonprofit's clients are Latino. Would we qualify to participate in this initiative? I think if you go to the terms and references in our FAQs, that it does say that about 70 or 80% of the beneficiaries of a project should ideally be from Latino communities. We do need to make sure that the majority of people supported are from Latino backgrounds. So that's something to bear in mind. But of course, if that's your case, you could always just mold your project or think about how to segment your project so that in the particular activity that you're raising funds for are specifically for a majority of Latino beneficiaries. Elena also asks, would all of my materials need to be bilingual? The answer is no. That's up to each organization that uses HIPGive, whether they want to run a bilingual campaign or not. If you believe that the majority of people who are going to be interacting with your campaign are only English speakers or only Spanish speakers, then that is your call. And you can decide to publish a project on HIPGive in only one language, if that's what suits you best. Our recommendation is, if you're able to, publish it in both languages, because you never know who will see it and who might want to become involved on the basis of what they see or read. But like I said, it's not obligatory in any way. Okay, that's as many of the questions that I've seen right now on the screen. I don't know if there's any more going to be coming in. But like I said, we are on hand to help you, guide you through the process. So you have the emails on the screen. My email is anita@hiponline.org. And if you don't find the answer to your question in our Learning Center, then please do feel free to write me a quick email, and I will be happy to help. I'll say again that the material for this presentation is available in the handout section. It's a PDF. You're welcome to download that. You're welcome indeed to share it with as many other people as you think might find it useful. HIPGive, of course, is available all year round, not just for Latinos Give, but we do love to give this special push in terms of visibility and support to nonprofits in the run-up to Giving Tuesday, because we know that it's such an important and meaningful opportunity to raise more funds for the work that you do at this time of the year. So with that, I'll sign off. Thank you very much for being with us today for the webinar. Very good luck with all of your Latinos Give and Giving Tuesday campaigns, and we hope to see you very soon on Giving Tuesday. Bye.